Intersecting Media presents.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
The next thing in late night talk.
Here we go.
While you're working, eating, and playing, he's watching.
It'll be like old times.
Keeping you informed.
Thank you.
Jason Page.
Demented and sad, but social.
Covering all the day's news from a studio somewhere in Southeast Asia.
Worldwide!
And talking about it with you.
Blah, blah, blah.
You're Up Late with Jason Page.
Hooah!
Or up early.
Good morning.
But just stay up.
It is time.
Here's Jason.
Thank you, Chad Erickson, and thank you for tuning in to Up Late with Jason Page, the video show which you can watch live and interact with. There's a chat box right there. Right there. You can hit us up on Twitter at the back page if you've got anything to add there. On Twitter at the back page. I can't see every single message that comes across as we do the show, so there's a lot going on. But I've got the chat box up so that I can see anything you type on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're on all of those platforms. Check them out. I've got so much to do over the next 60 minutes. I almost considered just going longer today, but I'm trying to keep the show regularly to an hour because we also have the Up Late with Jason Page podcast where we take this show and condense it into just a nice 50-minute audio presentation for you. So we do that too. As I said, a lot to get to. Like I said, it's one of those days where I've got 7 or 8 things that I want to talk about. You see our backdrop to the show. Let me duck my head here for a second. You can see. We've got these shelves that we put up, and yeah, we got a few pieces of memorabilia up there and things like that. I think we're going to add a Mr. Potato Head to it. Or should I say Potato Head? Because they're taking the Mr. out of Mr. Potato Head. I got to talk about this later in the show. And we will. Because I find the whole thing kind of hilarious. I mean, I really do. So we'll get into that a little later on. We'll have our usual sports conversation later on the back end of the show. We'll talk about that. Twitter wants to make you pay to be a super follower. This is the way they're trying to steer people to be able to make some money off of what they tweet. Now, I will admit, Twitter is my biggest platform. Twitter is where I have my most followers. It's where I do my most action, so to speak, in social media. So for me, it's kind of a hotbed. So I thought what Twitter decided to do was kind of interesting. It makes you wonder if there's something bigger at play here, though. We'll get into that coming up a little later on. With that having been said, big news politically, militarily in the United States. What's he been in office? 35, 36 days, and Joe Biden has already made his first military strike. This one coming in Syria. And it comes at the hands of Iranian-backed militias. Now, there's some backstory to this that if you're not following the news closely, you wouldn't hear that much about because, quite frankly, the all-news 24/7 media only focuses on politics. They don't even talk about when the U.S. military is attacked, as it has been in the past 2 weeks, by Iranian-backed militia groups in Iraq. Remember Iraq? Yeah, we still have people there. Well, the U.S. military on Thursday struck a site in Syria used by 2 of those Iranian-backed militia groups, and that was in response to the rocket attacks on these American forces in the region in the past couple of weeks. So up to a handful of militants were killed in the strikes, a U.S. official is telling CNN. First known military actions under Joe Biden. And it was time for the U.S. to respond. Now, look, there's one thing that I have said, and some people in the Democratic Party get mad at me when I say it. Be ready for more military conflict. Donald Trump was the sort of hugger-in-chief when it came to our adversaries. Vladimir Putin and Russia. We all know that relationship. Saudi Arabia and the Crown Prince and what he did to Jamal Khashoggi. We all know what that relationship was like. Donald Trump, the flowery love letters with Kim Jong-un. We all know what that relationship is like. Erdogan in Turkey. We all know what that... The guy cuddles up to dictators. I mean, there's just no getting around that. Whether you like it or not, that's the truth. So now you're going to get that whiplash effect with Joe Biden, who's talking about releasing the unclassified or the declassified or unclassified or classified version of the Jamal Khashoggi murder report, which basically implicates the Crown Prince for the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. So you've got that. You've got Trump talking tough with China. You've got Trump talking tough with Russia. You've got Trump talking Biden talking tough with Saudi Arabia, China, Russia, and now trying to retaliate against Iran, but trying to do so in a way that still salvages the negotiations when it comes to the Iran nuclear deal. I don't know how you thread that needle. I don't know how if you're Iran, you're like, yeah, you just attacked us, but we're going to get into bed with you. Knowing that the next Republican president, if there is one, I say if, in 2024, could just undo this deal again. So, a very tough line for Joe Biden to walk as it relates to Iran and trying to get them back into the JPCOA. I think that's what it's called. So it'll be interesting to see how Iran responds, because there's been a lot of tit for tat in the Iran-U.S. relationship when it comes to military options. So that made some news on Thursday. By the way, this is the Thursday/Friday edition of our show. It's Friday afternoon here in Singapore, even though it's Thursday night back in the U.S. So that always makes it interesting when I'm having these conversations, because I wake up in the morning and hear about these military strikes. You guys have been going through it all day. But even that could not top, to me, what was the big story of the day. And that was the Capitol Police testifying on Capitol Hill and basically getting up in front of politicians and saying, look, you guys are still in danger. Everybody's asking, why is there still such a heightened police force? Why is there still this military force around the Capitol? Well, the Capitol Police told you why today. They have intel, and our federal officials, our CIA, our FBI, they all have intel that says there are groups out there, domestic terrorists, who want to take down the Capitol when the president eventually gives the State of the Union address, which at some point he will give. You ever seen Designated Survivor? Every time I think of the State of the Union, I think of Designated Survivor now. Kiefer Sutherland starred in that show for a couple of years, and then somebody else took over, and it wound up off ABC. But suffice it to say, there's a reason all that force is still sitting there at the Capitol, because there is still a threat. As much as Republicans may want to sit there and deny this threat, pretend it doesn't exist, the threat is still very real. It's still there. But Republicans are like, threat schmet. Got news for you. If they attack the Capitol, if domestic terrorists ever do attack the Capitol, if you don't think there's going to be Republican bloodshed, you're nuts. They're coming for everybody. They want to burn the place down. I saw an interview with the leader of the Proud Boys that CNN was able to get on Thursday night/Friday morning. And if you watch this interview, they're making it very clear. They want to tear down our form of government and basically start over. And by the way, in some regards, the form of government that currently exists in the United States is failing. It should be changed. but it should be changed by democratic means. And I don't mean big D, I mean small d. Vote. Like Barack Obama says, don't boo, vote. That's what he always says, right? I tried to do my best Obama there. But you do have these domestic terrorists that are out there. It's amazing. I mean, you think about this for a second. You had the attack on 9/11. Twin Towers come down. Still hard to believe it's going to be 20 years, by the way, in September. You have the Twin Towers come down. You've got the shoe bomber. Remember the shoe bomber on the plane? Now you got to take your shoes off at the airport. You got to take all your stuff out of your bags. Think about how the whole world changed after 9/11. The way we fly, the way we travel, all of that. Enter buildings, federal buildings, even baseball games. You go through metal detectors, stuff like that. Think about the way our world has changed. Yet you have an attack on the home of our democracy, the capital where our lawmakers meet every day to try and do what's best for the American people, even though they fail miserably. They try. At least they say they're trying. You have an attack there, and you have one half of our political system, the Republican Party, basically saying, let's just get on with it. I mean, it's just say it out loud. It's nuts. And there is chaos in the Republican Party. Make no mistake about it right now. You have political chaos. You have political chaos in the Republican Party right now. You have Mitch McConnell going on Fox News on Thursday night. Mitch McConnell, Fox News, Thursday night. And he's talking about the possibility of Donald Trump running for president. Brett Baer is asking him about Donald Trump running for president in 2024. He plays some comments from Mitch McConnell. Watch it for yourself. All right. Apparently, we can't get the video of that up. But essentially, I'll tell you what it said. I'll do the heavy lifting for you. Mitch McConnell ostensibly said that he would support Donald Trump if Donald Trump were the nominee in 2024. You had Mitch McConnell, who just excoriated Trump. He just excoriated Trump and failed miserably in trying to convince anybody that he actually gives a damn about the country in the process, because he voted to acquit Trump in his Senate trial. But now you have McConnell getting up and saying, yeah, if Trump's the nominee, I'm going to support him. Put that up against the conversation on Wednesday where you had Liz Cheney and Kevin McCarthy literally standing next to each other and having completely different points of view on the idea of Donald Trump speaking at CPAC. Watch this for yourself.
Do you believe President Trump should be speaking, or former President Trump should be speaking at CPAC this weekend?
Yes, he should.
Congresswoman Cheney?
That's up to CPAC. I've been clear in my views about President Trump and the extent to which following January 6th, I don't believe that he should be playing a role in the future of the party or the country.
On that high note, thank you all very much.
And watch them all scurry like cockroaches. I mean, amazing. It's absolutely amazing. You've got these people standing up there. The number one of the Republican Party on the House side, the number two or the number 3, rather, of the Republican Party on the House side. And they're saying completely opposite things. And then you have Mitch McConnell, as I said, espousing these ideas. I actually was able to get the audio, so here it is. Mitch McConnell with Brett Baer. Watch for yourself.
There'll be a lot of talk this weekend about 2024 and whether the former president is going to get in that mix. Here's what Senator Romney said about that if he does.
Will President Trump continue to play a role in my party? I'm sure he will. He has by far the largest voice and a big impact in my party. I don't know about his family members, whether they intend to do that, but I expect he will continue playing a role. I don't know if he'll run in 2024. If he does, I'm pretty sure he will win the nomination.
Do you agree with that?
Well, there's a lot to happen between now and 24. I've got at least 4 members that I think are planning on running for president, plus some governors and others. There's no incumbent. Should be a wide open race and fun for you all to cover.
If the president was the party's nominee, would you support him?
The nominee of the party? Absolutely.
So Mitch wants to have it both ways. Mitch is sort of riding the fence on all of this these days. Trying to make the case for all these other potential candidates in 2024. And you've got people in the Senate that may run. You've got governors, all of this. But then at the same time saying, oh, but if Trump's the nominee, yeah, we'll pick him. You really can't make it up. Up late with Jason Page. Glad to have you with us on this Thursday/Friday edition of the show. It's just amazing. I have to say, you have this schism in the Republican Party, as I mentioned. And one of the ways in which we pointed it out was right there with regard to Trump and how the GOP is sort of divided on the idea of Trump as the leader of the party. And don't forget, Trump will speak at CPAC this weekend. We will have coverage, and we'll get into it on Monday. We'll obviously talk about it. So you move away from the Trump aspect of this and talk about what took place on Capitol Hill on Thursday. And that is these hearings that took place about the equality bill. Now, the House passed this equality bill, geared towards protecting LGBTQ folks. And we talked yesterday on the show about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the sign that she put up outside her office, basically trolling her neighbor that's a Democratic House member and was trying to go after her for having a transgender daughter. And, well, we saw everything that took place as a result. You had this conversation on Capitol Hill on Thursday, and Rand Paul decided to weigh in. Dr. Rand Paul decided to weigh in and talked about the idea of transgender sex reassignment surgery as being genital mutilation, basically comparing it to genital mutilation, which it isn't. And he tried to cite an example of, somebody who had sex reassignment surgery that regretted it later in life. And it's so typical of Republicans to jump up and find one example to try and justify demeaning and alienating an entire part of our culture, an entire part of our country, and that is transgender people. And the woman that was on this panel that was being questioned, I think it was a confirmation hearing, actually, for an assistant secretary of health, something like that. She's a transgender woman. And I thought she handled the question very diplomatically in terms of trying to diffuse what was being asked by Rand Paul. But here again is another example of where you have this rift between Republicans within their own party. The House passed this sweeping legislation on Thursday to ban discrimination against people based on sexual orientation and gender identity, delivering a big win to the LGBTQ community. The Equality Act passed 224 to 206. 3 Republicans crossed party lines to join Democrats to endorse the bill. That's less than half of the number of GOP votes the measure got the last time it came to the floor. Republican Dan Crenshaw, who is hosting a transgender person on his podcast next week to discuss military issues, said it's pretty damn important for the GOP to clearly articulate why they oppose this particular bill. There's definitely a wrong way to message everything, he added. This isn't about messaging. It's about human rights. This isn't about messaging. It's about protecting our transgender folks in the United States. And being somebody that's friends with somebody that is transgender and somebody who has evolved himself, I admit, I had to evolve on this issue. I had to evolve on the topic of transgender people because it was something I was highly uneducated on. And I forced myself to understand more about transgender people. And I feel like I'm much better for having done so. I have a friend, Christine. Used to identify as Chris. Now identifies as Christine. And being put into a position where I had to converse with and understand this person that I've known for a long time and what they struggled with, and going from being Chris to Christina and becoming comfortable with that. Not that it is for me to be comfortable with, but it helps me to articulate the plight of transgender folks who don't have a voice by being able to understand what it is they go through. Because I can't fathom it. I never could fathom it. I still can't understand what it's like. It's hard enough just to try and figure out from a sexuality standpoint, having to go through that in my own life. I can't imagine what it's like to have to wrestle with the body parts I've been born with versus what I feel like up here. I can't fathom that. But I'm a lot better at understanding it as a result of being friends with somebody that's transgender. So to me, Dan Crenshaw, who is hardly liberal, Dan Crenshaw at least having this conversation on behalf of Republicans and saying, we've got to start talking about why it is we're opposed to equality for transgender people. I think that's a start. It's a shame it's taken us this long to get to that point. It's a shame that only 3 Republicans in the House saw fit. Only 3 Republicans in the House saw fit to open their arms to the idea of equality for the LGBTQ community. It's terrible. It really is. Greatest nation in the world, though. Everybody will tell you that. I'm Jason Page. You're up late. There's something that kind of ties into this. And I want to get to it when we come back. I'll give you a hint, though. I'll give you a hint of what we're going to talk about when we come back. And here's what it is.
Mr. Potatohead. Mr. Potatohead.
Stay with us. All right, we welcome you back. Up Late with Jason Page. Thank you for being with us on this Thursday/Friday edition of the show. Mr. Potato Head is making news, which, gives me the opportunity.
Mr. Potato Head.
Yep, thank you.
Mr. Potato Head.
I just love any chance I get to play that. I wonder how many people could actually name the movie that's from. Can anybody name the movie? If you can name the movie, type it in the chat room. We'll give you some props here on the show for anybody that can do it. Dave, our friend in Connecticut, watching the show, asks a very interesting question. And I actually wrestled with this topic when I was hosting a radio show last year in Connecticut, about a year ago. And it's the topic of boys and girls participating in the sports of their not assigned sex. So let's say you have a teenage boy who now identifies as female and wants to run, say, track and field with other females, right? So you have track and field, born as a male, now identifies as female and wants to compete with other females. Well, that is obviously an issue that has to be addressed. And it's something that every state is sort of battling on its own terms because there is no federal answer to it yet. There is no federal answer. There is no legislation. There is nothing that sort of grapples with this topic. And I spoke to both sides of the issue. I spoke to the attorneys for a couple of high school teenagers, females, who were suing because they didn't think it was fair that boys that were, females assigned as males at birth are competing. So what do you do? How do you handle that if you're the states and these high school athletic associations? How do you grapple with having people assigned male at birth now taking hormones and doing everything they can to conform with their needs as identifying as female and now wanting to compete against other females? How do you do that? I think it's a very valid question. Because it's important to note this. Some kids wind up in high school. Some kids wind up in college. Some kids wind up getting scholarships based on their athletic achievements. So how do you, if you are these states and these athletic achievements that can net you a scholarship? Well, if all of a sudden you can't obtain those goals because you're competing against somebody that was assigned male at birth but now identifies as female, and you think, not true, but you think they have an advantage over you, a competitive advantage over you. How do you deal with that if you're the states? It's a very valid question, Dave. You can't tell transgender people you can only compete against other transgender people because there aren't enough of them. And then you're basically saying separate but equal. So that clause won't work. Do you put asterisks next to the statistics of transgender folks? That doesn't work either. I get it. Men may have, and our friend Destroy Carnage weighing in says, men have higher mass than women. That's a proven fact. Higher testosterone. That's a fact. But what you don't realize is, Destroy Carnage, transgender folks take hormones to suppress their testosterone levels. And I think if somebody assigned male at birth, if somebody is assigned male at birth, decides to transition to becoming a female, and makes the decision to do the chemical alterations to bring their testosterone levels and their hormone levels to levels that are within a certain range that puts you on a level playing field to compete against other females, I think you should be able to compete against other females. But it is a complicated topic. I will be the first one to admit it. I don't think there are any easy answers on it. And I don't even know from a law standpoint how you ultimately address these sorts of things. You know, there's no playbook for this stuff. You got to kind of figure it out as we go along, don't you? I'm Jason Page. You are up late on this Thursday/Friday edition of the show. But there are percentages involved in all of that stuff, and it is a very complex case. And again, some people will say it takes away from what women have fought for, and it is a very complicated issue. It is not easy. All right. Something slightly lighter, but still something that I think plays into this conversation. AP article. When I woke up and saw this trending on Twitter today, I'm not going to lie, I kind of laughed. The topic, is it Mr. Potato Head or not? Headline, Mr. Potato Head drops the Mr. Sort of. Is it Mr. Potato Head or not? Hasbro, well, it may have had some people scratching their head on Thursday when they announced that it would drop the Mr. from the brand's name in order to be more inclusive, and so all could feel welcome in the Potato Head world. It also said it would sell a new playset this fall without the Mr. and Mrs. designations that will let kids create their own type of potato families, including 2 moms or 2 dads. Oh, just cue the Republican outrage. Just cue the conservative outrage when they see this stuff. But in a tweet later that afternoon, Hasbro clarified that while the branding is changing, the actual Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head characters will still live on and be sold in stores. In a picture posted on Twitter, the Mr. and Mrs. names are less prominently displayed at the bottom of the box instead of the top. Quote, while it was announced today that Potato Head brand name and logo are dropping the Mr., I am proud to confirm that Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head aren't going anywhere and will remain Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. Now, you wonder if that came because of the outrage from conservatives and whether they fear boycotts and cancel culture and all that stuff. The tweet came after news of the brand name change exploded on Twitter, with people asking if Barbie will change her name next. I think Hasbro needs to drop the bro and just be Has, another person tweeted. Hasbro appears to want to have it both ways, expand the brand while not killing off its most iconic characters, which appeared in the Toy Story films. GLAAD, the LGBTQ advocacy group, applauded the more inclusive potato playset. Now, look, this is one where they lose me. There's a Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. Nobody can argue that male and female potato heads aren't represented. I can't even believe we're having this conversation, but there's no way to argue that male and female potato heads aren't being represented. So what's the problem?
Mr. Potato Head. Mr. Potato Head.
And if you want to make 2 a man and have a 2 male couple, then fine. But do we need to kill off the idea of Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head now? Exactly. It's a potato. Anybody name the movie yet, by the way? Anybody come up with the movie, this movie line?
Mr. Potato Head. Mr. Potato Head.
I'll say it at the end of the show if nobody comes up with it. You're way too young, Destroy Carnage. You are way too young, I can promise you. I know how old you are. So I know that if you knew it, if you knew it, I would be shocked. If you knew it, I'd actually be really impressed. But man alive. So Mr. or Mrs. Potato Head, it still remains to be seen. There was a Miss Pac-Man and a regular Pac-Man. They don't call it Mr. Pac-Man, by the way. There's just Pac-Man and Mrs. Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man. I'm actually going to be getting a tattoo. True story. I don't know if I've ever shared this, but I'm planning to get a Pac-Man tattoo right here on my arm. I haven't gotten it yet, obviously, but I have it all drawn up. I know what it's going to be. And in the very near future, there will be a Pac-Man tattoo on my arm. I'll talk about what it signifies and why I'm doing it and all that when I get it, but yeah. No, so there is Miss Pac-Man and there is Pac-Man. So, but some people might say, well, it's demeaning to have her be called Mrs. Pac-Man. Why can't she be called something else? Why does she have to have the man on it? She's Mrs. and Man. At any rate, very funny. Congratulations, Dave. Bowled a 613, huh? I miss bowling. Man, I miss bowling. I miss having my equipment here in Singapore. Because if I want to bowl in Singapore, I'm literally going to have to go buy all new equipment. I'm going to have to go buy all new equipment and start from scratch because I literally got rid of everything I owned that has to do with bowling when I left the United States. Breaks my heart. My niece, Gabby, she is a monster. She is a bowling monster. But at any rate, I miss bowling. Moving away from Mr. Potato Head for a second. And can I go back to politics for 1 second? There was one thing that took place, and then I'll do sports to finish the show. There was one big thing that took place as it relates to this COVID bill, this $1.9 trillion COVID bill that Democrats are trying to pass, and will eventually pass through the Senate. I mean, this bill is coming. There will be an extension of unemployment benefits. There will be another stimulus check for $1,400, which adds to the $600, which creates $2,000, which was everybody was talking about. One thing that will not be a part of the COVID relief bill is a $15 minimum wage. And I bring this up because everybody talks about, well, if you do a $15 minimum wage, there are studies that say 1.5 million people will lose their jobs and da-da-da-da-da-da. Costco was on Capitol Hill on Thursday. You know, no matter where you are in the United States, there's a Costco somewhere. Maybe not in Rugby, North Dakota, where I used to live, but somewhere there is a Costco. And we all shop at them at one point or another. Remember when there was Price Club back in the day? I remember Price Club. And then Sam's Club and Costco and all those places. So Costco, the CEO of Costco, or the chief financial officer, one of them, was on Capitol Hill. And he was being questioned by Bernie Sanders about raising the minimum wage. And do you know what this CEO of Costco did? He announced on Capitol Hill on Thursday, minimum wage now at Costco going up to $16. Highest minimum wage. More than Amazon. $5 more than Walmart, which is $11. $16 an hour if you start at Costco. Now, I don't know too many people who say, hey, I want to make a career out of working at Costco. But it's nice to know that if you do, decide to go work at Costco, you can make a livable wage. And I got news for you. $16 in parts of New York and parts of California, that ain't even getting by. So this idea that $15 is untenable, and I know there are parts of the country, I've traveled through them, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Iowa. $16 an hour, you're living like a king. And don't tell me I'm wrong because I know I'm right. Go look at the cost of living in a lot of those rural areas, those areas that are not even the suburbs, but those small town areas, you know, where Costco is like the biggest thing around. Hey, what are you doing Friday night? Let's go to Costco. $16 an hour? You're doing all right. You're doing all right. There's no Costco here in Singapore. There's nothing even close to it. Where you can buy like a gallon of mayonnaise. Nope. Nothing like it. $16 an hour, though, and that's going to raise some eyebrows. And don't tell me McDonald's or Wendy's or Burger King or KFC or any of these other places, Walmart, Target, don't tell me they can't do it, because you know they can. And they should. People should be able to make a livable wage. Now, if you want to make some statement about, you know, I wouldn't even have a problem necessarily if you said, all right, if you're 16 to 18 years old, you're still living at home, should you be getting $16 an hour? Because a livable wage for a 16 to 18-year-old is something different than somebody who's 25 living on their own, trying to make ends meet after graduating college, trying to find a job. They need something to do. Again, it's another one of those things where there are no hard and fast answers. There are no hard and fast answers as it relates to how to handle the minimum wage thing, because, like I said, in California, you could be making $100,000 a year if you're living in San Francisco, and you're still just getting by, if that. It's an interesting conversation, and it will certainly continue. Dave brings up a good point. He said we have kiosks to order at McDonald's, one cashier. Singapore, it's the same thing. They don't even have cashiers here right now. You do not, at our McDonald's in Singapore, and again, this is Singapore, we don't have a cashier. You have to order at one of the 4 kiosks. You pay at the kiosk, and you pick it up at the counter, or they bring it to your table. It's the way they do it. And a lot of fast food joints are going that way, even in the United States, moving more towards having you use an automated system to place your order. Even Starbucks does it. You rarely see 2 cashiers at a Starbucks now. They want you to mobile order. Otherwise, you can stand in line. Self-checkout's another great example. Destroy. Absolutely. Self-checkout at your supermarkets, we have them here too. Self-checkouts at Walmart and Target, I use them all the time. Oh, isn't it the worst to get stuck behind somebody? Isn't it the worst to get stuck behind somebody who doesn't know how to use self-checkout? How many times do you say it? Or you get stuck behind the person at self-checkout who's got like 7,000 items in their carriage. If you've got that many items, go get in line and have somebody check you out. Nobody wants to watch you piling items out of your cart at self-checkout. Nobody wants to see it. Well, Destroy, what is your job if you say it'll never be automated? Are you like an auto mechanic or something like that? Because an auto mechanic, there are certain jobs that will never be automated. Plumbers and things like that. Taxidermy. You're really? Wow, taxidermy. You actually are a taxidermist? I don't think I've ever met a taxidermist. Taxidermy, that's like stuffing dead animals, isn't it? Right? You stuff dead animals. Taxidermist helper. Yeah. But you stuff dead, isn't that what a taxidermist does? They stuff dead animals. And you can put them on like you take a dead animal and you want to put it on your wall, which I could never do, by the way. I can't fathom taking like a deer head and putting it on my wall. No. Although I have thought about like when my French bulldog died, I was like, boy, would I want to get him like preserved and be able to keep him. And then we quickly decided that wasn't going to be an option. All right, stick around. I'm going to take a quick break, and then I've got a bunch of sports stuff I want to rattle through in the final 10 minutes. It's Up Late with Jason Page. Don't go anywhere. This has been a weird show. We welcome you back. Up Late with Jason Page. I am Jason. Good to have you with us. Be careful what you wish for. The Russell Wilson edition. Russell Wilson apparently wants out. That's the talk. That Russell Wilson may want out of Seattle. There's a guy who's won. I mean, I don't understand this for the life of me. I don't understand this for the life of me. It's amazing how quick relationships can go sour. It's amazing how quickly things can go south. I mean, here you have Russell Wilson, a guy that is a Pro Bowl quarterback, will probably go down as the greatest quarterback in the history of the Seahawks, and he still has so much career left. Wilson has been very vocal about his frustration with the Seahawks in recent weeks and the possibility of him getting traded, even though he has 3 years left on his deal and a possible out after 2021. Right now, things are going really sour between Wilson and the Seahawks and apparently Pete Carroll. So The Athletic is reporting that Wilson met with coaches after Seattle's losses to the Bills and Rams to try and figure out how to get things going. First half of the year, he was an MVP candidate. And then everything went bad. He had 7 interceptions, was 1-3 between weeks 6 and 9. And that's basically when the Seahawks season went down the drain. Wilson reportedly had ideas on how to change the offense around. The Athletic reported Coach Pete Carroll wanted to be more careful with the offense, and Wilson wanted to trust himself. And you know what? I'll never have a problem with a quarterback saying, put it on me. I could fix it. Betting on himself. And frankly, if you have a quarterback of that caliber, you would think a team would want to do that. Before Week 10's win against the Cardinals, The Athletic reported Wilson expressed his ideas about how to turn around the offense. He was ignored. He then, quote, stormed out of the room. So there's obviously this disconnect. And here's what I'll say. Russell Wilson's going to wind up somewhere else. He will not spend the final 3 years of his deal in Seattle, whether it's opting out after the 2021 season or being traded in this offseason, because if the team senses he's going to opt out after 2021, why wouldn't you trade him and get something for him rather than getting nothing for him after the 2021 season? And if Russell Wilson, he was on the Dan Patrick show. Let's see. Can I play this audio? This is Russell Wilson with Dan Patrick.
Yeah, I definitely believe the guy can call us for sure. I think that, I think anytime you're, a player that, tries to produce every week and has done it for, consistently, I think people are going to call for sure. And I think it's part of the process.
Yeah, but you're a franchise quarterback. You're a Hall of Fame quarterback. You're not available, are you?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm available or not. That's a Seahawks question. But I think more than anything else is, I think at the end of the day, you want to win. You play this game every day to wake up to win. You play this game, to be the best in the world. What I hate? I hate sitting there watching other guys play the game. There's nothing worse.
By the way, you looked miserable at the Super Bowl watching.
Yeah,
there's
a picture of Sierra and Roger talking. I'm sitting there pissed off. I'm watching this game, wishing that I was in there playing. I think that ultimately you watch the games and you want to do everything you can to be there. That's why we play this game.
Here's the way I view this Russell Wilson thing. Think about if you have a girlfriend. If you're a guy listening to the show or watching the show, you got a girlfriend. And one night over dinner, the relationship is okay, but it's not great. She's a 10 and you're like, a 7 or an 8. And you say, honey, I think we should think about maybe opening things up a little. See other people. The relationship just ended at that point. It's over. It's done. Everybody's like, well, no, you're just having a conversation about it. Once your mind goes to the spot of saying, I think we should see other people, it's over. Done. It's the same thing with Russell Wilson. And the same thing with the Seahawks. If they're investigating trading him, that relationship is fractured beyond repair. If you have openly started to flirt with the idea of committing to someone else, it's done. And if Russell Wilson conversely already has it in his head that there are other teams out there that might be better suited for him, the relationship's over. You're already talking about seeing other people. Tell me how many times relationships survive once the conversation has reached the point of, I think we should see other people. That's where you are with Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. They're talking about seeing other people. And if that's where they are, that relationship is already beyond repair. All right, a quick note on Tiger Woods, because there is an update in the Tiger Woods story. Sources close to Woods are saying he is aware of the fact that his career is in jeopardy. Now, you'll recall he had a long surgical procedure to repair significant orthopedic injuries to his right lower extremity, open fractures of the upper and lower portions of the tibia and fibula bones, foot and ankle, screws and pins. You're talking about a major sort of reconstruction of his leg. Can he survive it? Could he possibly come back and play? This source also says he thinks Tiger is going to try to come back. And he said exactly what I said on the show for the last 2 days, that Tiger's not going to want to be remembered as having his career ended by a car accident 30 minutes or 30 miles away from Los Angeles. That is not how Tiger's going to want it to be remembered. Tiger's going to want to walk off the course on his own terms. And I have said, Tiger will try to return. I'm not predicting he's going to come back. I'm not predicting he's going to win and come back and break Sam Snead's record and get his 83rd PGA Tour win. I'm not predicting any of that. What I will predict is Tiger Woods will try to come back. You will see a statement at some point from Tiger Woods stating that he is going to try and come back. If doctors say there is even a sliver of a chance of Tiger Woods being able to come back, Tiger Woods is going to try to make it back. If you have followed this guy's career at all, you know That is what Tiger Woods is about, defying the odds. I mean, he was the greatest player in the world for a decade. Was able to win a Masters after not being able to win a major for what, 10 years, 9 years, whatever it was? Would you ever count Tiger out? You'd be crazy if you did. And you know, somebody in our chat room said, oh, I never watched golf. It's so boring. Tiger Woods made golf exciting. Tiger Woods galvanized the game in a way that the guys you see out there today, they were inspired by watching Tiger. That's how long he's been at it. All these guys in their 20s, they grew up watching Tiger in his great years and said, I want to be that. I want to be better than that. He changed the game. There's no getting around it. And he will try to come back. I will absolutely go out on that proverbial limb and say Tiger's going to try to make a comeback. I don't know if he'll get there, but by heck, he's certainly going to try. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us. There's always one knucklehead in the chat room. I'm not talking about Dave or Carnage, but there's always one knucklehead in the chat room who tries to be funny and disturb the show. Never fails. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget the Up Late with Jason Page. The Up Late with Jason Page podcast. If you miss any of this show, we run it back in podcast form, courtesy of Believe. Make sure to check that out. I have not been doing shows on Friday nights so far. We've been doing shows 4 days a week. We haven't added the 5th day yet. Might do a show on Friday night. You'll just have to wait and see. That's going to put the wraps on us. Catch you back here next time. I'm Jason Page. Don't forget, subscribe to the Intersection podcast as well. Give us a like on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. Subscribe, Twitter, all those different places. I had a rough day. A lot of people might be wondering, it seemed like I'm a little off today. I hurt my right knee last night. And so I usually stand to do the show, and I'm standing today, but my knee is killing me. So it's been a little difficult to concentrate on doing a show when my knee is like throbbing in pain. Hopefully it'll get better. Gonna go get a brace for it. Anyways, have a great day. Mask up. Stay safe. I'm Jason Page. We'll catch you next time. Up late. See ya.